Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Newfound Happy Hour. My name is Sarah. If you haven't been here before, this is episode 5. So we've been doing good. I've been managing to get this out on time, usually Thursdays or Fridays, depending on the week and what else is going on. So if you're still here listening, for one, thank you. For two, if you know anyone who I should be speaking to on here, please let me know. Anyone with local businesses, organizations, anyone who has some funny stories, whatever. You can find me on Instagram at Newfound Happy Hour and anywhere you get your podcasts. If you're listening, you already know that. If you're listening right when this comes out, it will be Thursday. And I know most people have a holiday Friday for Canada Day. And I wanted to have this out beforehand, just before everyone goes to, if you're going to any Canada Day parties or anything like that. I kind of just want to get this message out beforehand. So regardless of what we're talking about today, the reason that I'm doing this podcast is to hear other people's side of things, to hear someone's opinion that you may not have thought of before on any given topic, and then how it relates to life here in Newfoundland. So today, a portion of my conversation with Jill is about her job working with indigenous people, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to bring more awareness to certain things and maybe have someone's real experience with it, kind of put things in a way that you haven't heard before. So obviously, we're kind of choosing our words carefully, and it is a sensitive topic, and I don't have all the answers, but this podcast is supposed to be my opinion as a young woman in Newfoundland and not an expert on any given topic. I think that's relatable, and that's why I'm bringing more people in who have more insight and more education than I do. So, because I think most of us are just trying to be more aware about the world we live in and be better people. So if you're feeling the need to just dismiss what we're talking about today, and go celebrate Canada normally anyway, then maybe ask yourself why. And if it makes you uncomfortable hearing these things or thinking about it, that's good. I find it very uncomfortable that we're still finding mass graves across this country, so it's not something you can really ignore. And if you, for some reason, are someone who chooses not to believe that this is an issue, or that it's even happening, or something that we should just put to the side, at least consider the simple fact of what we mention later in this episode. There are so many indigenous people who don't even have access to clean water. I am in a Facebook group for the town of Torbay where people complain every few months that there is a tinge of color in the water, which is totally valid and very annoying, and I understand that. But imagine how inconvenient it would be for a big city like St. John's or Toronto to not have clean water. And, you know, a lot of people are just expected to accept that. And if you disagree with that is an issue, then we might just have to agree to disagree. But at least consider that fact when we're talking about not celebrating Canada Day. And I do want to clarify what we meant by not celebrating Canada Day. So it doesn't mean that you won't see us out and about and doing things. And, you know, it is a holiday for a lot of people. It's summer. There's a lot of things going on. What I mean specifically is I will not be out wearing red, waving a Canada Day flag. That's basically all we mean, is that we're not acknowledging Canada Day, really. A lot of people last year wore orange instead of red to just acknowledge all the mass graves that were being found, and the, I guess, education of learning that a lot of unfair treatment happened. Unfortunately, a lot of us were only learning about this last year. So yeah, I think that's what I will do. I just think it feels wrong to celebrate the country as a whole right now when it was built on all these terrible things. So while, yes, a lot of us are very lucky to live here, and we're lucky that our families lived here before us, but that is not true for all Canadians. Some people in this country are less lucky because they were simply here first. So I hope that explanation makes sense. I won't be celebrating Canada Day specifically. I won't be out wearing red. I will be celebrating the weekend with my friends, as I do. So if this resonates with you at all, or if you're having a hard time explaining why you aren't celebrating Canada Day to people, you know, it doesn't mean that you don't love this country, and it doesn't mean that you aren't privileged to live here. It just means that we're acknowledging that not everybody is privileged to live here. And I know some people think that small actions like just wearing orange today or tomorrow or this weekend won't do much. But if nobody wore red, it would kind of put an emphasis on it, and maybe people who were turning a blind eye to it or just wanted to put it aside would kind of educate themselves more. I think that's kind of what Jill touches on, is education is key when it comes to things like this, and just to listen to other people's opinions and their stories. So it's kind of what we do here. So yeah, that's my little spiel before that. But we talk about a bunch of other things this episode. So my friend Jill, I have known her for a good few years, and she was someone who I knew could speak about this, but also her experience staying in Newfoundland and Labrador, but obviously not in St. John's, and still moving away from friends and family. And I knew that she would have a unique kind of take on that. And yeah, so I'll stop talking now. If you're still here, thank you. So yeah, let's get into it. Yeah, so I'm here with my friend Jill, who is a social worker. Do you want to say your age and where you're from?
Yeah, so I'm Jill. I am 26 years old, and I'm originally from Marystown, Newfoundland. I'm actually living in St. Anthony, Newfoundland right now, and I met Sarah when I was living in St. John's, Newfoundland.
Right. I always forget that, like, obviously I say a lot of my friends from Newfoundland. I forget that so many of my friends aren't actually from St. John's.
I know. Sometimes I forget I'm not from St. John's. Yeah. I just spent such a significant, period of my life and, my young adult life there. So it's, hard to think that, there was a life before that. But
Yeah. And we met when we worked at Spring together.
Yeah, so I guess we worked at Spring together for, a period of time. And I guess over that, we kind of just clicked. And I'm pretty sure, I was, newly single and I was sad at work. And I was like, we should go out. And you were like, yep, no problem. We're doing it tonight. Let's change in the back room and we'll head to George Street, and we've been friends ever since.
Yeah. Shoes and singleness bring people together.
Definitely.
But yeah, I had so much fun working there.
It was actually really
sometimes
fun.
I'm I would love to work there again.
I know. And the shoe discount, didn't realize how good that was until it was gone.
Mm-hmm. Well, my shoe collection is big enough, though.
That's true.
From that place. I don't need any more. Yeah, I stocked up all I could. Yeah, so you came into St. John's for school, and you did...
Yeah, so I did my Bachelor of Social Work. I started university in 2014, and I graduated in 2019. Yeah, so I did my undergrad in social work, and I recently just got accepted into my Master's of Social Work, and I'm starting that in September.
Right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's so exciting.
I'm excited. It's definitely going to be a different university experience this time around compared to my first time, because I'm doing it part-time online while I work full-time, so it's going to be busy.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess in social work you do work terms, right?
Yeah, so we did 2 work terms. I did 1 work term with an organization in St. John's called Stella Circle. I think a lot of people from St. John's are really familiar with that, but they do a lot of housing support services, those types of things. Well, that was the area that I worked in. And then I did 1 with the provincial government, with the department that I work for now, but in St. John's. Yeah.
Right. And then after graduating, you've had a couple different jobs, or I know you've moved a little bit.
Yeah, after graduating, I did work in St. John's with the provincial government for a period of time. I think it was probably a little over 4 months. And then my boyfriend, Brandon, had gotten a job in Goose Bay, Labrador, and we decided to move there. So I had switched jobs.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're living in St. Anthony, but you still go back and forth.
Yeah.
Goose Bay?
Yeah. So what actually happened was, we had moved to Goose Bay in September of 2019, and I worked full time there for a period of time. And then in September 2020, Brandon lost his job that we had moved to Labrador for because of COVID. It was a permanent job, so it was a really big shock to us. But we we made it work, and he ended up getting a new job in St. Anthony, another permanent job, and Brandon's from St. Anthony, so that's where we are now. But I could get a job in St. Anthony, don't get me wrong, but I've been working in Labrador. It'll be 3 years this September, and I don't have any plans leaving anytime soon. I really, really enjoy it.
Oh, wow. Because I remember when you took that job, when you were going to go, and you were like, it might just be for a year. Like, just a year, and then we'll come back. Or just 2 years, and then we'll come back.
Yeah, I was scared shitless, like, not gonna lie. And, like, at the time, me and Brandon had only been dating for a year. We'll be together 4 years this year. But at the time, we had only been dating not even a year. And I was like, but he told me, he's like, you know, I'm moving for this job, and I'm going to be gone for years. And it was kind of like I had to, like, make that next leap in our relationship, or I kind of had to end it. So I decided to do it, and I'm certainly glad that I did.
Yeah.
I always say it's funny that you end up in places where you're meant to be, because I had actually, when I was living in St. John's before Brandon had even applied on that job, I applied on the position that I work in now, which is a fly-in, fly-out 2 week on, 2 week off position, and I had gotten screened out from the listing. And it was due to my lack of experience, and I accepted the job in St. John's, and then I had gotten a call from my exact office that I work at now saying, you know, we want you to come. And I said, sorry, I already just accepted this job. But then somehow I still ended up working at that office. So.
Oh, okay. So it was definitely meant to be then.
Yeah.
The universe works
definitely.
in funny ways. And so what's your day-to-day work? I guess when you're on. So I guess when you're off work, you're fully off for the 2 weeks.
Well, pretty much. Like, you know, I might like have a thing that might be scheduled while I'm off, and I kind of make it work from home with my laptop and whatnot. But so I work usually I do work 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. So we actually just work like a condensed schedule. So most like provincial government employees would work, I guess, 37 and a half hours a week, and which adds up to 150 hours a month. And what we do is we do 150 hours in 2 weeks. So we're still working those hours that everybody's working Monday to Friday, but we're doing it in 2 weeks. So you can imagine that it's super busy. And at the end of the 2 weeks, you're pretty exhausted. I just finished my 2 weeks yesterday. So today I spent the day literally I did not want to talk to anybody. I'm just like watching Grey's Anatomy and living my best chill life, because need to like come down off that.
Yeah, you need a break after that.
Definitely.
And I guess it's every day for the 2 weeks.
Yeah, well, we get like one day off, and like so we fly up on a Sunday, then we work for the week, including Saturday, then we have Sunday off, and then we work for the week again, and then we fly home Sunday.
Right.
Yeah.
And because you were actually living in Goose Bay though. For a while.
I was.
And it seemed like you guys had a small group of friends there. So what is it like living there?
It was definitely a major adjustment. I think like me and Brandon both didn't know what to expect when we were moving there. You know, there was a lot of tears shed just because of the unknown, not because of, you know, we were afraid of certain things, but just, you know, when I lived in St. John's, I only lived 3 hours away from Marystown, so I got to see my parents, my grandparents all the time. My mom actually lived in St. John's, and all my friends. So it was just, you know, a big adjustment. Brandon was the only person I really knew. But when we got there, you know, there's actually a lot of young people that live in Goose Bay. It's definitely like a place that a lot of people go to like start off, because it's like easy to get jobs there. So, you know, people kind of take the leap and go there for a while. And so we did have a good group of friends, a lot of like young teachers trying to get their foot in the door in the education system. Right. You know, nurses, other healthcare professionals, other social workers. You know, Brandon had his friends through work, and, you know, we kind of would just, you know, invite everybody to our place on a Friday night and go from there.
Yeah, because I always pictured it as being so small and like nothing to do. But then I was like, oh, like Jill kind of got a small group of friends there. Like they're always having fun.
Yeah, and like it was bigger than what I expected it to be, because like the first thing that like, you know, you tell someone you're moving there to Goose Bay, they're like, there's no Walmart there. And it's kind of like, holy crap, there's no Walmart there. So Walmart in Marystown, like where I grew up, which is only a community of like 5,000 people, but there's actually more people in Goose Bay. I think there's around 8,000 or so, but they just don't really have the things because it's like such a remote area.
Right.
But yeah, like, you make your fun, you know what I mean? And the thing that I realized too, like, you become friends with a lot of people that you would not have ever met if you weren't, like, trying to, like, step out of your comfort zone. Because, like, in St. John's, you know, me and you, like, we share similar interests. And, you know, the other girls that are in our friend group, we can almost by looking at each other know that we'll hit it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, you know, you strike up conversation with people that you probably wouldn't talk to if you lived in a big city like St. John's. Then you know, some of those people might be some of your friends for life.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And so I guess kind of to follow that, like, obviously you were kind of nervous about going there, but have you had any, or I guess what were some challenges that you had either personally or professionally moving there?
Yeah, so there's definitely challenges in both personal and professionally. Personally, just being away from my family and not being able to get in a car and drive to see them was, like, very challenging, you know. So Labrador and Newfoundland obviously aren't connected, so a ferry ride or an $1,000 plane ticket was in order to see my family. So that was a big thing. And just, you know, I'm Starbucks winners loving gal, and, you know, on my days that are stressful, after work, go grab a Starbucks, walk through Winners by myself, that type of thing. So
I know that your online shopping has increased.
Definitely increased.
For sure.
Yeah, 100%. That's what people say to me. They're like, you know, like, living in St. Anthony or living in Goose Bay, like, you must find that hard because there's no stores. I'm like, I think I buy more now than I did when I lived in St. John's, to be honest. So, you know, thank God for online shopping and Amazon and all those things.
Yeah.
It was definitely, like, weird, you know, going to the grocery store and seeing things be a bit more expensive. But you learn to live, like, within your means, and you get what you need. But yeah.
You adapt to it.
I guess professionally, you know, in St. John's was very, I would use the word comfortable. It was still a stressful job. Being a social worker is, my personal opinion, you know, it's not something that's easy, but it's worth it. And I guess moving and working in Labrador, kind of, they're shorter staff because it's harder to recruit people, which puts heavier demand on the staff that are there. So that was definitely an adjustment, like, going from, you know, somewhere where I felt like I had everything under control at work all the time to feeling like I never have anything under control.
Yeah.
But you learn to find different ways to kind of, like, cope with that and make it work.
Right. And for anyone who might not know, like, I do have a couple friends who are social workers, but what would be, like, I guess, what is your job for someone who has no idea?
So social work is, like, a very diverse field. You can work in a mass amount of settings, like healthcare, community, but I work in child protection. So basically what we do is try to help people with social barriers and or other things that might be causing, I guess, disturbances in their life or their relationships.
Right. Yeah. And so I know, like, just from us talking before, like, you do work in more of a rural area, often with indigenous people. Do you want to kind of say what your experience has been with that?
Yeah, so I do work on a reserve in Labrador. It's definitely been one of the most eye-opening experiences, and probably the most grateful experience of my life. I still feel so privileged to work with indigenous people and learn so much about the indigenous people of our province that I didn't know before working in Labrador. I will say, like, it kind of does make me a little bit angry that, you know, I grew up in this province my entire life and had no idea how many indigenous people were even in our province until I decided to venture to that part of the province.
Yeah. They almost make it seem in school, like, because I remember kind of learning things throughout, like, social studies.
Yeah.
And they just made it seem like it was so long ago. And obviously the way it's portrayed in school, which is the only place that you really learn about it, unless your family or people in your life teach you about it, is that it was so long ago, it was a nice relationship, and obviously we're learning now that that's not the case.
Yeah, it's just absolutely crazy to me, honestly, that, like, what we learned in school and, like, what we didn't. I was definitely surprised by the lack. Like I said, I knew. And, you know, I kind of like have talked to my parents about it before as to say, like, how come you didn't tell me about it? But then I realized they didn't know either. You know what I mean? And it's just been kind of like this thing that people know that there's Indigenous people like in Labrador, and that's just that. I don't think people actually realize the amount of Indigenous people that are in our province, and like what they have to offer to our province and our country is just phenomenal, really. And
like the struggles that they still go through.
Oh, like, definitely.
It's mind-blowing to me that having clean water is a topic of discussion.
Yeah, I've been in parts of Labrador before that I've worked in where I've had to brush my teeth with bottled water, wash my face with bottled water, those types of things, just as a precautionary even. It's really hard to kind of wrap your head around it and understand like how things ended up the way that they did and still are to some extent. But I gotta say, like, Indigenous people in our province, like, they really do work good with what resources that they have. And
we could probably all take a lesson of like sustainability from them
and gratitude too, for sure. You know, everything is kind of a challenge when you live in a remote area. You know, when you get sick, it's not so easy to be able to go to the hospital, and you know what I mean? And that's just that, and know that like if you need an emergency surgery, you could get it that night. Like that's not how things are in Labrador. You know, children and adults have to be airlifted, and of course some costs are covered, but you know, there's other costs associated with those things, like traveling for other family members and food and, you know, getting back home, that like it's just crazy that the amount of resources, I guess, like how far they are away and how unfair it really is.
Yeah, and like obviously we're still finding mass graves across the country for the past 2 years.
Yeah, it's just honestly heartbreaking. I can't imagine what these families and communities have gone through. It's just, I honestly have no words.
And I guess continue to go through. I mean, obviously that trickles down, like the effects of that.
Intergenerational trauma is definitely a real thing, and it still is affecting Indigenous people across our country every single day.
Do you have any, I guess, personal opinions on how either like the federal government or like how Canada as a country can do better?
I think the thing that I learned, and I think the most important thing that people can do, is just sit down and listen to Indigenous people and figure out, you know, what they have to kind of offer and say about these things. Listening to their stories and recognizing how real that is, and putting yourself in, you know, in the shoes of some of these families and these communities, and just recognizing the trauma that is a result of, you know, the things that have happened.
Yeah. And obviously this episode is going to come out on Canada Day, or maybe just before, depending on how quick I edit. But do you have any personal feelings about Canada Day? Because I know personally, like after last year, everyone kind of did the whole wear orange thing, which I think I'm going to do again, because like it just doesn't feel right to me to wear red and celebrate the country as a whole when it's built on a lot of terrible things that we didn't know about.
Right. I did not celebrate Canada Day last year. And I don't have any plans on celebrating it again this year. I did wear orange last year. I have a Every Child Matters t-shirt that I've got in Labrador. I'm proud to wear. I guess, you know, the biggest thing I think that people can do, like, to support, you know, Indigenous people on Canada Day is, you know, if you want an orange shirt, buy it from an Indigenous person or an Indigenous company. You know, listen to a podcast or YouTube video, or read an article published by an Indigenous person about, you know, residential schools or intergenerational trauma, and just kind of educate yourself on what's happened. Because it seems to me, and this is my personal opinion, that that's something that would be most appreciated.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because like we said before I started working in Labrador, I was ignorant to a lot of things, and education is key to be able to even like try to understand and support and empathize with what's happened.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially when we weren't, it's like, it's hard, it's kind of ignorant to say like, oh, well, we just didn't know. But I mean, as a student, like as a child, no one tells you, and no one, like you said, our parents didn't even know in some cases that it was going on. So yeah, I guess from here on out, it's just to learn what you can about it. And if everyone can kind of get on the same mindset about it, then that's where like things can improve and change can happen.
Right. And I think something too that like could really help, or, you know, with any place in Canada as a whole, and this is just from my opinion, like as a social worker, working in a rural area, is that we need to ensure that people can get the services that they need at home. And they don't need to travel and leave their family and leave, you know, we need to ensure that, like, you know, we continue to advocate for services to be in rural areas, because I really do think that that's key. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, you've seen people in kind of difficult situations, and your job can be hard, especially working longer hours and all that. So what has your, and you, like you said, you've been there a couple of years now. So what has your overall, like, I guess, what are your feelings about it now? The fact that you took a job that is kind of difficult, makes you uncomfortable.
I honestly can say that I'm so glad that I did what I did. I have absolutely no regrets. I think it's changed me as a person in many better ways than just one to be able to narrow it down to. I feel like my perception of the way that the world works, the way that life works, just has completely changed. And I couldn't, if you ever find yourself, anybody listening, deciding if you want to take a leap of faith, like about an uncomfortable situation, whether it be a job or a relationship or a move, I kind of suggest that you just do it, because, you know, you can always go back. So
yeah, and you may not want to.
Right. So like, I'm grateful that I live in Newfoundland and I'm closer to my family and friends. But at the same time, like, I absolutely love the work that I do and the people I get to work with and meet. And, you know, I've met some amazing colleagues and coworkers along the way that I would have never even got to know. They've become some of my best friends. And yeah, I 100% wouldn't change a thing. I'm so excited now that COVID is finally coming to a rest, because the 2 week on, 2 week off thing really gives me a lot of ability to travel. So that's one thing that really makes it work. You know, me living in St. Anthony is obviously challenging because I'm not really close to my family and friends. I'm closer, but still far. But it gives me the opportunity to be able, you know, if someone has a birthday party that I want to go to and it's when I'm off, like, I can make it. You know what I mean? Or, you know, I have a bunch of my friends getting married this summer. I'm headed to St. John's this Thursday for a week and a half. And, like, I wouldn't be able to do those things so easily if I did work Monday to Friday.
Right.
It's like I feel like I'm at a great age, like at 26, to work that kind of schedule, because I'm going to New York in August, I'm going to Toronto in August, and, you know, it gives me the ability to kind of do those things and still, like, see my family and still work a job that I love and still live with my partner. So
yeah. And what effect, or I guess, like, what role has your relationship played in all this? Because obviously part of your decision to move was kind of because of your relationship.
It was. It definitely was. Like, I would have never moved to Labrador if it wasn't for Brandon. I might end up working there, like doing the 2 and 2, but I wouldn't have ever moved there. I will say at the beginning, like, it had its challenges when I first got to Goose Bay, and I wasn't sure if I was going to like it, and I was feeling stressed at work. Like, there was a bit, I guess, of small resentful feelings about, you know, the current situation that we were in at the time. But I honestly couldn't have asked for, like, a better person to go through all these things with. You know, I did sacrifice making that move for Brandon, but he lets me know pretty much every day, even though we don't live there anymore, you know, how much he appreciated that. And I would have never been able to work the job that I did, or the job that I do still without his support. You know, being away for 2 weeks at a time is not easy on anybody, you know, not sleeping in your own bed, not being around your own things, not being with your partner, but like knowing that you have someone that's like supporting you through every step of the way, a healthy relationship that you feel so confident in that you don't have any issues of, you know, having to worry about what are they doing while I'm gone, or are they going to be mad at me if I don't talk to them for the next 12 hours? Like none of those thoughts ever go through my head, because like my relationship is just so secure. And you know, if it wasn't like that, I don't see how I would ever be able to make the relationship working the job that I do. So yeah, it's been great. It's definitely made us closer because we've gone through so much, especially like when Brandon lost his job, which was pretty much his dream job, to in the field that he worked in, to COVID, which was like an extremely hard thing on him. And like, you know, we had just made this big sacrifice by moving to Goose Bay the year before, and it was like, was this all worth it? You know, everything that we've been through and all the money we've even spent like coming here. And you know, we almost bought a house there, which is crazy, but you know, I guess the universe works in mysterious ways to protect you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but you know, I wouldn't be able to do it without him. That's what I gotta say.
Oh, shout out to Brandon.
If you're listening.
Well, he seems very supportive, so
yeah, I feel like he definitely will listen. I'd be surprised if he didn't. Now, if I rename this podcast Spittin' Chiclets, he would definitely listen.
Yeah. Yeah, so I know like he's been a support, and I know your dad is a social worker too, so like has that helped you at all? Obviously, I mean, one would think that he's the reason that you got into the field, is that right?
Yeah, he definitely is. My dad is my biggest role model, my number one supporter. He's, you know, always rooting for me, no matter if it's the little things or the big things in life. I don't think I don't know if I would have gotten into social work, because I honestly truly do feel like it's my calling in life. But like seeing him like growing up and like how hard he worked, and like we're just such similar people, like, you know, it just made so much sense to me. And like I can't thank him enough for being such a good role model, because yeah, social work brings me so much joy, and he is just such a big support, and I'm so proud of him every day. He's still working as a social worker. He's probably approaching around 30 years now with the provincial government. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and I guess it's good to have that relationship where you can ask him like questions about work too.
Yeah, and just someone who kind of understands like how I might feel after a hard day, or, you know, someone who kind of like, he can actually like talk to me on the phone at the end of the night, and I'll be like, I had a brutal day at work, or I had a great day at work, and like he understands those feelings, you know what I mean? Those happy feelings, those confused feelings. There's so many feelings that come along with social work, because most social workers are empathetic people. So it's hard not to feel what others are feeling, but you know, there's both positive and hard feelings through it at both. But yeah, it's so nice to have someone who actually gets it. Because I have wonderful friends, like, you know, a great group of girls that support me through every single thing that I do. But it's really nice that my dad actually gets, you know, he gets what my day-to-day life looks like. Yeah. And I can look up to him, and it's just been great.
Yeah. And where do you see yourself? Because like I said, when you first moved, I thought you were going to be gone like a year or two, and then you come back. But it sounds like you might stay. So like, where do you see your future with your career?
It's really hard to say, because working the 2 and 2 schedule, while it has like a bunch of perks at this age, it's not something that I would be able to sustain forever. I really want a puppy. I feel like everybody knows that I want a puppy, but it's just really hard to commit to getting a puppy when I'm only home 6 weeks at the time, and I really don't want it to like Brandon more than me. So, which is so true. I don't know. I don't care if that sounds childish. Like, I want it to be my baby. So that's like, you know, there's things like that. And of course, in the future, like, you know, in the later future, you know, starting a family and things like that. Like, it's not something that's sustainable. If you had the, like, I know people do it, but like I had the choice not to do it. So it's like, but honestly, it's really hard to say, like, location wise where we'll end up, because you really never know where either of our careers could take us at this point. We're so young. Brandon's 25, I'm 26. So we still got like 25 years of work ahead of us. I will say, like, I'm super excited to do my master's degree, and because I know that it's going to open up a lot of opportunities and doors for me. If I want to, you know, further excel in the department that I'm with, or if I want to do private practice, like, and do therapy, if I want to work in a hospital, you know, there's so many things, and I don't think I actually 100% have it figured out yet, but I'm just really glad that I kind of chose a career where I have so many options.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that way about business sometimes. Like, the reason I did it is because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to get into, and like the experience can just kind of, like you said, give you more opportunities as you go. And
there's, like, you know, there's certain things that you do in school that it's like you get out and you go and you do that job, and that's the only job that there is. But yeah, with social work, it's really, really diverse. And, you know, once I even start my master's degree, like, I wonder, I'll have to do like work terms with, or a work term, I'm not sure, with that too. So maybe, you know, I'll work for in a different type of setting, and I'll love it. Or you know, maybe I'll stay where I am and just, I don't know. It's really hard to say. Maybe it'll open up more interests for me, things that I didn't realize I was interested in until learning about them in the program. So I'd like to see myself in a hospital someday, but I don't really know.
Yeah, it's always hard to say. And I mean, like we said a couple times, like, the universe has a plan, and you can kind of think where you're going to go or make some decisions, but you don't know where you're going to be led.
It's so true. And like, I can see myself doing like a million different things, which also doesn't help either, because I'm like, oh my God, I can see myself working with the department in Labrador that I work with forever, because like there's so many things that, you know, I enjoy about it. But then it's, you know, I see myself doing other things too. So yeah, it's super hard to say, but you're so right. You end up where you're supposed to go. And like, even I only been working now, I've only graduated in 2019. So 3 years, and the past 3 years, you know, I went through my whole social work degree thinking I was going to work in St. John's, and that's not even what happened. And that was only 3 years ago. So real hard to say, but you always do end up where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, so we'll see. And yeah, I'm excited you're coming to town.
Yeah, I can't wait. There's going to be lots of fun things. I'm so excited for summer festivities.
Yeah. The 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off is beneficial for your friends as well.
Yes, agreed. Well, I know that. Like, Kelsey's like been counting down the days, I'm pretty sure, being like, how many more days? How many more days? I'm like, this many. But like, it's so good. Yeah, I live literally 12 hours away from you, but like, I probably still see you like 6 or 7 times a year. It probably more. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I really do my best to make it work. I'm certainly like an extremely busy person. Like, I am on the move all the time, living out of a suitcase constantly. But I wouldn't change it for the world.
It's funny too. I was going to say this at the beginning, but I mentioned you like in 2 separate episodes, and I was like, I have to have Jill on, obviously.
You're like boosting my ego.
I just keep mentioning your name. I'm probably going to mention it again, so at least now
I'm like sitting at my...
People know who I'm talking about.
Sitting, listening to the podcast. One time I was driving on when Allison's was aired, and then Hillary's, and I'm like, with the big old smile on my face, like if people pass me, they'd probably be like, I wonder why she's so happy. Did she just win the lottery? Like, no, my friends just showed it out to me in a podcast, and now I feel special.
Yeah. I love it.
Yes.
So I always finish with advice. So it doesn't necessarily have to be like about your job or social work or anything like that.
Yeah.
But just advice that either someone has given you or that you always give to people that you would like to share.
You can make any experience a positive one in this crazy world if you have the right mindset.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the advice that people have been sharing can really be applicable to different things. Like, you could apply that to your job, you could apply that to a relationship or like school or whatever. So, or like friendships. Yeah. And I feel like that's like our friend group's vibe.
Yeah, and like take the risk, girl. Take that leap. Like, just as long as you got a good group of friends in your corner that's willing to like cheer you on, you can do anything, I believe.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's that's like last summer. Oh my God, what did I caption it? So last summer you came. Well, that's okay. This is a good thing about living away too, I think, is that you can surprise people. Because like I love surprises, and you surprised us for Allison's birthday last year.
Yeah.
Or surprised her. I mean, we all knew that you were coming.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like things like that are so fun. But I posted a picture of all of us. Okay, here it is. Like just proof that our friend group, like you said, could literally have fun anywhere, like make the best out of any situation. But I said, my friends don't know how to have fun. That's why one birthday party turned into a 3-day hotel vacation.
Literally that happened. Like, I literally don't know how that happened, but like that was an awesome weekend in the J, for sure.
And we went to brunch and like we walked around downtown, and it's so fun.
You can really, really make anything fun. Because we've done it all.
Yep.
Through the worst times, like, you know what I mean? Like, you guys have definitely been my friends through some of probably the shittiest times in my life. I mean, I feel like since I met you, I think I met you in 2017. But, like, I had gone through a horrible breakup then and felt like my world was over at one point. I look back at, like, how foolish, like, that seems to me now that I even, like, let somebody, like, make me feel that way. Because I don't.
Yeah.
But you live and you learn. Yeah, like when you're young, you know what I mean? Like you live and you learn, and you. The right people are out there. Like, don't try to make. This is another piece of advice that I have for the young girls or ladies listening. Like, don't try to make something work. Like, if it's not working, let it go. Because I can tell you, like, of course, every relationship is effort. Like, you need it to add effort, or effort needs to be had. But, like, you don't, like, when you're with the right person that you're, like, supposed to be with, it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't feel like, oh my God, I need to wake up every day and try so hard to impress this person, or make sure that I do everything right, and I have to be the super girlfriend. Like, with the right person, it just works. It just does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Some of us are out here trying to find it, but
but like when it comes, you'll know, like, you know what I mean, like, and it comes, and like I actually do too feel like sometimes I see these quotes that are like, you know, the best love of your life comes like when you least expect it.
Yeah,
but it's actually so true.
Yeah,
it's just so true. Like, it comes when you're not looking, and it's just there in front of your face, and you're like, holy crap, how did this happen? But at least that's how it happened for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And yeah, like I was the same at that point. Like I know I was single at that time, and then like went through the full course of a relationship and a breakup again with all you guys. And yeah, like I feel the same way. But yeah, it was 2017 because I started working at Spring. My intent was to work there for 3 weeks before I went to Europe.
Right.
Like, that was my intent. I literally just wanted a bit of extra money. I knew the manager. That was my full intent. And I ended up loving it so much and got along with everyone there so well that I was like, what's one more job that I'm working? So when I came back, I ended up staying there. I became assistant manager. I was there for 2 years.
Was that your third job at the time? Or second?
Fifth, I think.
At one time?
Yeah, because I was working at...
Oh, right, because you did coaching and stuff, too.
I was working at Rob Roy. I was a nanny. I was coaching. I was working at a tanning salon.
Oh, right. I forgot about the tanning salon as well.
And then I was working there.
Wow. You are, like, literally...
I was.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, at the time, I mean, yeah.
The one thing I will say, though, about working at Spring, like, man... That was actually way more physically demanding than I feel like people realize, like working at a shoe store.
Yes.
Because like working at a clothing store, I mean, you're just, you're out, like, yes, of course it's work, you're folding clothes, but like there was days we would be running, literally running through the back room because you're just running, trying to find shoes and haul them out quicker than, I feel like now every time I go into and I feel like every time I go into a shoe store now, like I feel bad. when I need a different size, because I know someone's going to have to find where that box goes at the end of the night.
Yes. And putting them all back. And like, especially when I was assistant manager, I had to do stock all the time. So like my hands would be like paper cuts and raw from like opening all the cardboard boxes and taking all the boxes out and putting them on the shelves. Oh my. But it was still such a fun time.
It was. And like, you know, it was like we dressed up so nice and our makeup and hair were done, except for the days we were hungover. But, you know, we did dress up so nice and did what we had to do. And
yeah, it was good vibes.
Definitely fun. Although I don't miss those 20% off events before Christmas. That was...
No, and like Black Friday.
I like the snacks that we used to bring.
Mm-hmm.
But
true. Yeah, it was a fun time.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much for being on this week. I feel like this was a good conversation for Canada Day, and
I'm so honored
discussing your job.
I'm so honored to have been a guest on your podcast, and I will continue to listen and support.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Love you.
Jaden.
Oh, so fun talking to her. Thank you, Jill, again for being here. I will see you tonight if you're listening to this live. I hope at the very least this episode inspired you to learn a little bit more about Indigenous people this Canada Day and think about what small actions you can do to make things better, help create change. I hope everyone has a safe weekend, and I hope you have a fun weekend. And I'm really excited for next time. If all goes well, it's going to be a good one. So yeah, have a good weekend and happy Thursday or Friday or whenever you're listening to this. And you can find me, like I said, on Instagram or Facebook now, actually, at Newfound Happy Hour. And if you have any ideas of things I should speak on, or if you want to be on here, let me know. I have a list of future episodes, and I would most likely be happy to add you to it. So thanks for listening today, and thanks for being open-minded. I'm assuming most of you are. And we'll see you next time.